Hello, everyone. I'm Marion Short, the CEO of IAP2 Australasia, and this is the first of my recorded advocacy updates. So I hope you like them and we will keep them going so that we can keep you informed on all the things we're up to across Australia and New Zealand with our advocacy efforts. So I wanted to structure this and sort of give you the big news items first, and then a little bit of background about some other stuff that's going on. I'm also wanting to keep them brief, so I'm not going to give you the whole list. Rather, we're going to go on a journey together. Also, we're going to share some great links to some additional reading or resources that you might be interested in along the way. So on to the big news items. I think probably the biggest news item that we've got in Australia at the moment was the release of the Community Engagement Review. Now, the Community Engagement Review was commissioned by Minister Bolwin. He's the Minister for Energy and Environment and so forth. So he asked the Australian Energy Infrastructure Commissioner, Andrew Dyer, to undertake a review of community engagement in energy infrastructure. The report was actually completed in December, but only released very recently. And the timing of the release was great because it was the week before we had some meetings at Parliament House in Canberra. So it really gave us almost a magic carpet ride into those meetings. We will share the link to the report with you. I really encourage you to read it. So whilst it's 85 pages, it's a good read. You'll get through it. It really elevated engagement to a strategic position. And so that was a delight to see that now engagement is being recognised as a specialised area of expertise, and engagement projects should be led by skilled and experienced engagement experts. So just fantastic to see that. The report also really provides a tangible foundation for our advocacy efforts. So it really changed the mood of the conversations in Canberra, because now they get engagement because now there's a report out. I think it really provides the opportunity to further elevate engagement to that strategic level, which we have been advocating for some time. So, for example, it referred to the opportunity to develop a developer rating scheme for engagement, which is something we're very interested in at IAP2. And of course, we have the IAP2 Quality Assurance Standard for Community and Stakeholder Engagement, which lends itself to developing an IAP2 tick or some form of quality mark of people's engagement, organisations' engagement, or in this case, a developer rating scheme. So we're very keen to continue that conversation with government. Also, whilst the findings were specific to energy infrastructure, they can be applied broadly across government. And so IAP2 is busy sending that message out quite clearly and asking for it to be considered much more broadly. So we will share the link to that review, but also to the IAP2 submission that we made. And you will see, as you read the report, threads of other areas of recommendations from IAP2 being considered through the report as well. So that's the big agenda item for Australia. There's other good things going on as well. Over to our friends in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Of course, they had a change of government. So New Zealand went to the polls in October, I think it was, but the government took quite some time in forming. So it's a coalition government, and the full parliamentary government wasn't announced until December. They did release a 100-day plan, and the plan has, it's been considered quite contentious by the New Zealand media. And so it's got a number of repeals and reforms in it. And some of those repeals have already been made. So they're moving very quickly through their 100-day plan. And some of these may sit very uncomfortably with our New Zealand members, and we're certainly very cognizant of that. And I personally, I'm married to a Kiwi, I have Kiwi kids, and spent 30 years in New Zealand as well. So I understand how our members are feeling on this. So what have we done? So we wrote a letter to Minister, the Honourable Chris Bishop. Now, he has a very large portfolio. He is the Minister for Finance, Housing, Infrastructure, the RMA reform, as well as sport and recreation. And it was really under his responsibilities for the RMA reform that we were writing to him. So they're very much pushing a fast track consenting process through with the RMA reforms, so that and look, it reads well. You know, they've got this imperative to make sure that Kiwis living in cities and towns have faster access to major project infrastructure, and that it's you know, more affordable. So on the surface, it seems great. Our letter was really around, you know, saying that's great. We'd love to see cities and towns have access to major projects more quickly and more affordably. However, it still requires quality engagement, and that quality engagement actually needs to be an integral part of not just any project planning, but of the reforms. And again, we want to see engagement embedded into policy and legislation. So you'll be able to read that letter as well. We'll share that link with you. And also positively, I do have a past relationship with Chris Bishop from his days when he was a very early member of Parliament for Lower Hutt. And so I'm looking forward to picking up that relationship with him again. So on to some just broader other news. We have kicked off the year by reviewing our advocacy priorities, and I'm just getting them up on the screen. One of the things we feel is very important, not just in Australia and New Zealand, but also globally, is a position paper on inclusive and accessible engagement. This will build on the great conversations that we had at the Leaders Retreat in Uluru last year. And I think it will be really well received by our members, and also just thinking about our members in Aotearoa by elevating this conversation to ensuring inclusive and accessible engagement. We will be able to consider it more broadly and potentially pick up the issues that are facing, that New Zealand's facing with Māori and the challenges to the Treaty of Waitangi, but also here in Australia with our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as well. So do keep an eye out for that body of work, because we are keen to move that along. Another key area that we have a growing concern for is the definition of engagement. And so we have been really advocating for the IAP2 definition of engagement, together with the IAP2 quality assurance standard for community and stakeholder engagement, as being the minimum standards that need to be considered for quality engagement. And moving on to sort of the real stuff, what are we doing? Certainly, energy and the environment remain key areas of focus for us, together with infrastructure and urban policy. In Australia, there's a lot of appetite for discussing the energy environment with us from both a federal and state government level. And of course, in New Zealand, you've got the Resource Management Act reforms coming under Chris Bishop's office. So again, it's another big political agenda item for Australasia as a whole. Infrastructure and urban policy, of course, is where most of our members operate. And we know that there's a big pipeline of work, decades long, coming down there. And so it remains a key advocacy area for us as well. We are also very interested in natural disaster response, disability, and our First Nations people. And we are hoping to launch at Parliament House. Well, actually, we're launching a research paper. It's going to have two launches, one in New Zealand. So at the New Zealand Symposium, we will launch the new research paper that we're undertaking with Sally Hussey, which is Groundbreakers and Transparency Makers in the Role of Community Engagement, or in the Role of Engagement in ESG. So we're just finalising that report, and we're finalising the title too. So that's its placeholder title now. So you will see that launched in New Zealand at the end of March at our symposium in Christchurch. And then we will launch it in Canberra at the end of May. So we'll have, it's a lucky paper because it gets two launches. What else do I have to tell you? Oh, the very good news. This week, IAP2 Australasia was invited as a representative onto the consultation that's being undertaken with the nature positive laws. So whilst we're late to the party, we are definitely delighted to have been invited to the party. Now, the nature positive laws have two requirements for engagement in them. So they require First Nations engagement as well as community engagement. So we're clearly the missing member at the party of the Nature Positive Task Force. And I will be joined by Helen Leah, who is a member of our advocacy committee and Canberra based. So at very short notice, she is also coming along to the session with me this week. So that's a lot. There's a lot going on, and there'll be more updates every time an engagement matters comes out to you. But I'm going to just do a shout out for some of the great advocacy resources that you will find on our website. And I hope you can see a picture of this little brochure that I'm holding up. So this brochure is the IAP2 advocacy recommendations and calls to action. Now, we've updated this recently to include what we consider are really the strategic or policy level recommendations or calls to action. So they sit over the top of the practice recommendations, calls to action. So if you haven't had a look at this resource, the links will be provided. Then there's also a second brochure available on our website, which is our advocacy ethos. So if you as a member are saying, well, how do I support IAP2 with these advocacy efforts? Check that out and have a look at those resources and see what you can do. There's also a history of our past submissions and letters available on our website. And of course, feel free to reach out and send me an email. I think that's all for this first edition of the advocacy update. And I look forward to giving you the next one when the next engagement matters is due.